Network Entertainment.
What I'm hearing is vulnerability that's one-sided. That you want to make the other person feel seen, feel heard, feel understood. Do you feel like you need those things too?
Oh my gosh, that's so hard to answer. Like, I should say yeah. I should say yes, of course. But at the same time, I'm like, um, I feel like I'm okay. And I'll be okay on my own, even if I don't open up.
Hi, Achilles.
Hi.
Hi, well, thank you for taking the time to speak to me today. So, what do you want to talk about in terms of your relational space?
Relational space. Hi, Nikki. Thank you very much for having me. As for relational space, I'm at a point where I'm honestly very happy with myself. But prior, like a couple of weeks ago, if you asked me the same question a couple of weeks ago, I'll give you a completely different answer. I'd say that I'm very lost. I'd say that I lack a sense of worth, self worth in terms of relationships, but not really in terms of my other like endeavors. Just in terms of relationship, like I always ask the question, Am I that hard to love? Why is it so hard to have somebody stay? Why do people always leave? Why?
Well, what makes you
Just
ask
why?
that question then? Like, what makes you hard to love? What certain situations have you come across that made you believe or question that you're hard to love?
It goes back to childhood, honestly. Like I'm a middle child, and you know the stereotype with middle children,
Yeah.
and it's also like me and my sisters. We grew up with a family that doesn't really say "I love you" or when you show a tiny bit of emotion, it doesn't sit well with the rest of the family. So we were forced to just live life not knowing how to feel or not being well versed with how a certain emotion feels like or how sadness feels like or how hurt feels like. So growing up, that's how it was for me and my siblings. And then in college, in high school and college, both of my sisters, they'd always have admirers, suitors. But with me, I had nobody. I said nobody. So the moment somebody showed interest when I was in college, I took that opportunity, grabbed it, got into a relationship. That relationship didn't really work out. Then got into another relationship, which was a long term relationship. Thought I'd end up with this person. Still didn't work out, ended, and then was single for a while, dated around. All the people that I dated didn't really work out. And then recently I was in this relationship, also ended. And then my siblings, my sisters are in long term relationships. So I'm like, what's wrong with me? Am I the problem?
Yeah. How does it feel kind of like unpacking all of that right now?
I want to cry.
Well, you can definitely cry.
Cause
It's
like,
fine. It's valid.
cause like till now I still have a problem like analyzing or just like understanding how I feel like. Cause I didn't really grow up knowing how certain emotions feel. That's why the moment now somebody asks like, "How are you?" It's so easy for me to cry because I don't know how I feel. Like I don't know how to control my emotions or like manage my emotions. And it's always been like that ever since. That's why when I was in in my previous relationships, I always intellectualized things that I felt during, and like I didn't know how to react after the relationship was over. Like I'd move on. I thought I'd be like okay after a week. I was okay after a week, but then after a couple more weeks, after a couple more days, I suddenly have like a surge of emotions because I didn't really process it well after the breakup. And now no, it's just hard for me now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that sounds really intense, and the tears, they are like, it's okay. It's okay to just let it out. Where, like, what emotion could you connect this to? Your tears, the overwhelm that you're feeling right now.
Is frustration an emotion?
Yes. Yeah, frustration. In terms of
That one.
what?
Being or not being in control.
Lack of control. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or,
Like I've heard it before in my long term relationship before. He'd always like comment about me wanting to be in control all the time. Cause like even my days are structured. Like 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Blah 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 blah. 9 a.m. to 9:30, 9:30 to 11.
mm,
Everything has a structure, and I apply it in all aspects of my life, even in my relationship. And that's like one of the comments I heard before. And when something is out of my control, if something doesn't go as planned, I get so frustrated.
all right. So, what I'm hearing from what you said earlier is that you like your days structured, and when there's no structure, or when things fall out of place and out of place from that structure, you feel frustrated.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? What is it about structure that you like?
Because I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was a kid.
Okay.
So, but it's my first time like seeing a psych again for like sa adult life ko for ADHD. Anyway, that could be a factor.
It could be. It
Maybe.
could be. And so this frustration, though, also, you said that it comes out when you don't know how to process emotions. So is that, like, in some ways that's how you said it earlier? Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
but in terms of like not following the structure of the things I have planned, I just don't like the feeling of not being in control with things that I thought I could control. And same goes with my relationships. I thought like I could control the relationship. This is how I pictured it in my head. That's why I also get frustrated. That's why I also tend to not feel emotions or try to avoid my emotions after the relationship because I was like, oh, okay, this is out of my control. So why would I spend more time thinking about it? But then it
Mm,
bites me in the ass. I'm like,
okay. Okay. So what I'm hearing now is that you're quick to, quote unquote, move on from a relationship after it's
yeah,
ended, because you feel like it's something that you can't control. And instead of
yeah,
you kind of going with the flow of it, you would rather just kind of push it aside so that you can feel less frustrated.
yes. Oh my God, yes.
Okay. Okay. And in terms of you wanting control in the relationship, in what sense, usually?
I feel like it's also from my expectations, from the
Mm,
books I read, the movies I watched, my parents, my siblings. I want like what they have.
mm-hmm.
So as much as possible, I want something to turn out this way. And when it doesn't, that's when I get frustrated.
The
It's mostly for my expectations.
And these expectations that you've mentioned, are they things that you've brought up in the relationship, like at the start of a relationship,
After,
after a relationship ends, or
yeah,
after? Okay, yeah, okay. Well, okay, it seems like, yes, you have expectations. We do in relationships, and that's absolutely normal to have. And I think it's something that should that could be shared with your partner, because if not, then you might resent them, and that's how you get maybe
yeah,
frustrated.
yeah. That's one of the reasons why me and my long-term relationship, that's one of the reasons why we broke up, because of like resentment from the lack of fulfillment from those or from set expectations. We talked about it also,
Mm-hmm.
and I built resentment, and he was kind of not really pressured with the expectations, but like since he didn't know that those were the things I was expecting,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really feel well on his end. On my end, man, like why I don't like share my expectations or like say anything or ask of anything from my partners is the idea and the fear that I might be too much or I might be too difficult. Because what again, it stems from childhood also.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to be a difficult kid. I was already the middle child, and like we weren't really taught to handle our emotions, like when you cry or when you make the pa, or like pag nadapa ka, you can't really cry. You have to stand up agad and
Mm.
move forward. That's how we were raised. Kaya
Mm.
I didn't want to be difficult.
How does it feel like crying now?
Saying it out loud, parang sad pala.
Mm. Yeah, you can sit with that for a moment. A few deep breaths here. So you're saying it's sad that you weren't able to express yourself well or express
Yeah.
emotions when you were a child. So you felt like you were. Did it feel like you were restrained or like like restricted from doing that?
Yeah, out of the fear of like being difficult. Like like I wanted to be the easy partner.
Mm.
Like I just didn't want to be difficult. Kasi when I was a kid, parang that was the case. Eh.
Mm-hmm. Being the easy child, being the easy partner, how would you describe that person to be?
Another comment that I always, not really a comment, but like a praise that I'd get from my previous relationships. They loved how independent I was, how I didn't really ask on them to like do things for me. I'd help them a lot. I feel like that's my love language to like my like giving,
Mm-hmm.
like acts of service,
Mm-hmm.
what I like doing for people. Because I didn't want to be, I just wanted to show up for them, and they don't have to worry about me. They don't have to show up for me because I can handle my own shit.
Mm.
Like I'm independent, and I'd always get that. Na parang, oh, they'd always commend me for it. Or oh, you're so independent. I like it. That's one of the many good qualities that I like about you. You're so independent.
Mm. And if you were, let's say, the opposite of the easy partner that you wanted to show that you were, how would that person be like in relationship?
She'd be less in her head. I talked about this is something my sister told me a couple of months ago
Mm.
when I got into another relationship with this person after
Mm-hmm.
like more than a year of being single. He was so expressive about how he felt about me, what he wanted. And I was just like, no, you're only allowed to see me once a week. Two or twice is pushing it. Three times is too much. Like, no. And then my sis, and like, I also moved. And then he was like, oh, let me help you. And I was like, no. I was just not allowing him to do things for me. And then my sister was like, why aren't you allowing him? Why don't you accept his help? And I was like, because I'm not used to it. Like, I can handle my own, like, I can do it alone. I'm fine alone. He's just there.
Mm-hmm.
And then my sister was like, isn't that the essence of a relationship for you guys to help each other? I was like, I don't know.
Mm.
I guess, but like I don't want it. I thought I didn't want it.
Well, let me ask you this then. How do you want the kind of relationship you want to be in to look like?
I honestly don't know.
Well,
I
you said
honestly don't know.
you've read books, you said you've seen your sisters in long-term relationships.
Yeah.
What are some of the qualities that you would say that you like from those relationships, whether it be fictional or non-fictional, that you would might want for yourself?
Oh, best example and idea for it would be my parents. Like whenever my dad goes home, the first thing he does is look for my mom. Nasaan si mommy? Go nasa kwarto, nasa room. Does he go to my mom and then give her a rundown of what happened throughout his parang the whole day? Tapos magkakwentuhan lang sila. And I was like, oh my god, I want that. That's what I want. Just having somebody with you share every single thought that you have with them. That's it.
Okay, so what I'm seeing, and it's a little confusing also, but we'll get there.
Okay.
Okay, so you said the kind of relationship that you want is something that's kind of similar to what your parents have, wherein your dad is just open to sharing how the day went with to
Yeah.
your mom.
Yeah.
So it's the partner approaching, let's say, the female partner. Let's say your partner approaching you, telling how his day went. Is that right?
I think it's mostly being vulnerable with somebody, sharing every single thought with somebody, and just sharing your whole life with somebody.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah, and so what I'm noticing here also is that okay, so you want to be vulnerable with someone. That means being close to someone more than like, than you would let anyone in as usual.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, in this previous relationship, you were, it seemed like you were pushing away a partner who wanted to spend time with you.
Yeah. Oh
So,
my, that is confusing.
yes. So maybe it's also something to do with your vulnerability because you're saying you want your partner to be vulnerable with you, but how vulnerable can you be with your partner?
Oh my god. My partner before my latest one, the long term relationships, you know, that's like one thing he mentioned before, like verbatim, kind of verbatim. He was like, why does it sometimes I feel like I'm the only one opening up?
And how did that
I'm
feel
like,
when he
oh,
brought that up?
I don't really remember how it felt like before, but now, like in retrospect, I'm like, because I rarely did. It was just him. I was just like, yeah, I'm here for you. But like on my end, oh, I'm such a perfect partner. You don't have to worry about me. That's why he didn't really open up. Like he opened up so much of his life to me, but like there's so many things about me, my family, my thoughts that he doesn't know because I just don't open up about all of that to him.
And so the concept then of vulnerability for you, how does that show up? How do you show vulnerability then when you when a situation calls for it? Like, apart from you mentioned this example with your former partner, and could you cite other examples probably in which you were vulnerable? Or is it, yeah, go ahead and let me know.
I cry a lot. So I thought like that was already vulnerability. Like if I
Crying in
cry,
front of
oh my
someone?
gosh. Yeah.
Okay.
So I opened up to my previous partner, like the latest one, more than I did with my long term relationship partner. We cried a lot together. I think that's it.
But how
That's the
much
only
did
time I
you,
remember now I showed vulnerability fully to somebody.
in that moment when you would share, would cry together, were you open to talking about, your feelings too, or were you more of the listener?
I'm more of a listener for sure. Because when I talk about my feelings, when I talk about like what's in my head, one, I don't really know how to just word it. I don't know how to talk about it. Another thing is that I'm so used to being okay. That's why it kind of feels uncomfortable with me, like just sharing more about like how I feel. But in that moment when we were talking and crying to each other, it was mostly me trying to comfort him and how he was feeling and trying to relate to him. And I just realized, like in retrospect, it's always been like that. I just want like me trying to be vulnerable with somebody is just me making sure that they are heard and I understand them. Not really me opening up fully.
Got it. Got it. And so what I'm hearing is vulnerability that's one sided, that
Yeah.
you want to make the other person feel seen, feel heard, feel understood. Do you feel like you need those things too?
Oh my gosh, that's so hard to answer. Like I should say yeah. I should say yes, of course. But at the same time I'm like, um I feel like I'm okay. And I'll be okay on my own, even if I don't open up. But I feel like I should. I feel like I should want to.
You mentioned earlier that you didn't really know how to put your feelings or your thoughts into words. Have you ever tried like saying just not necessarily your thoughts or, your beliefs, or but more of like your feelings? Like, have you ever tried saying like I feel blank? I feel blank
No,
when.
I usually my what happens in my mind is like I am experiencing unhappiness because in my head I was like, if I say I feel sad, it's gonna be a reality. So I just like don't structure it or like make it seem as if I just lack happiness at the moment.
Well, what makes it a bad thing if it becomes reality? Because
Exactly.
the reality is you are sad. What is
I
it about
know.
saying those statements that you hesitate to say them?
Because I feel like if I don't frame it that way, if I don't say it out loud, it's not gonna
It's
be
not
true.
real.
That's so sad. Oh my gosh. This
It's okay. You're safe here. You can cry.
is the most I've cried. And this is the first time I'm talking about all of this. Because I like to think generally I'm a happy person. Like, oh, there's nothing to worry about me. My parents don't have to worry. I'm okay. I'll be okay. Even for that, I just don't know how to process things. Like, I just don't know how to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I push things under the rug. I sweep things under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tend to bottle things. And when I'm talking about it now with somebody, like now, it's like, or I don't know how to handle it because I'm should have overflow and I don't know how to handle it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's exactly
That's
what
why I haven't stopped
happens.
crying.
That's exactly what happens when you bottle it all up. Because eventually there's no more space left in that bottle. And that bottle
Yeah.
is very finite in terms of how much it can keep. You're that bottle. Is it still sadness that you're feeling?
Confusion
Confusion. About what?
and frustration.
Mm-hmm. About what?
I'm frustrated because I'm frustrated because I've allowed myself to be in this state and I'm confused because I don't know how to feel or like what to feel at this moment. Like am I sad or angry at myself? I don't think I'm angry at myself, but I feel like I'm just sad that things had to reach this point for me to just acknowledge it.
Mm. Well, look at me right now. Look at me right now and tell me, I feel sad. Say it.
Oh, I don't want to admit it, but I feel sad. I feel very sad.
Mm.
I feel happy. I I feel happy the past couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
but now I feel sad.
Well, two things can coexist. Two opposing things can coexist. You can be happy, but at the same time, you can also be sad. You can be happy about different things. You can also be sad about different things. You can hold those two emotions at the same time.
Before this, I didn't really consider that.
Did you feel like if you were to say that you were sad, then you had to embody that sadness? That point of it being real? That you had to live in that sadness?
Yeah, and I didn't want that. That's why I always avoided it.
Hmm. And so you choose to think or feel happy instead.
Yeah, I always look for something to do, something that I'd feel or like get excited about. For example, after my breakup, I was always out.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I was always doing something. I went to the beach after this other breakup.
Mm-hmm.
Not recently, but like I went to the beach a couple of years ago alone because didn't. I just had to be excited about something in order for me to feel happy or like to not feel sadness.
Mm-hmm.
I always had to distract myself and do something else to avoid a certain emotion.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious
The
as
rest of reality.
mm-hmm. When you were younger, when you couldn't process, you didn't know how to process the emotion. So when it was a bad or an icky kind of feeling, how did you get yourself out of it? Was it also similarly to find something to do that makes you happy? Mm.
It was pretty easy for me to do something else or to just be distracted because of my condition. I had ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
so it was easy for me to just get distracted. But if I feel extra frustrated about like something, for example, I had an argument with my parents or like yeah, I had an argument with my siblings,
Mm-hmm.
I'd cry in the shower. I literally every single time I get into an argument with somebody in my household, I'd go to the shower and then cry there.
Mm.
And then after I'm okay. It was always like that. But again, it was easy for me to get distracted.
Mm-hmm. So if you could show up, that little inner child that you have, who would go to the shower and cry because she couldn't really process her emotions or didn't really receive the words "I love you" growing up, who didn't really know how to process emotions, if you took the responsibility right now to show up for that younger self, what would you tell her?
Just feel it.
Mm,
Just feel it.
mm-hmm,
What's so funny is that when my friends are sad or when they're going through something, I'd always tell them to just sit with their emotion and feel it. And I
mm-hmm,
can't really apply to myself. So I do this. I do the same with my younger self to just sit with the emotion, just feel it.
mm-hmm,
Because I remember there was this, like, I remember it like in full detail. We were watching Cheaper by the Dozen.
mm-hmm,
I was with my dad and my two siblings, my two sisters in the living room watching Cheaper by the Dozen. And then at the end, it made me cry. Like the train scene at the end, it really made me cry. And I was crying, like
mm,
silently. And then my dad saw me and he was like, "Why are you crying?" And I couldn't really say no. I was crying because of the movie. The movie made me cry. That was the first time I cried also while watching something.
mm-hmm,
And then it wasn't really received well. So I said na lang na, "Oh, where's mommy? I'm looking for mommy. That's why I'm crying." So there's like a kind of valid reason as to why I was crying. And
mm-hmm,
then, mas pinagalitan pa ako kasi my dad was like, "Nasa labas lang mommy mo. Ba't ka umiiyak?
mm,
I want mommy."
mm,
Where I had to like look for a different reason to make it valid.
mm-hmm.
Ganon.
Yeah. And so, words of reassurance would you offer to your younger self, to your inner child, let's say, so that, she would feel safe to express emotion?
It seems so cliche, but it's okay.
It's okay in
It's
terms of what?
okay. Like, just, it's okay to react the way you do, to
Mm,
feel the way you feel. It's okay if it doesn't seem normal.
mm-hmm.
It's okay.
What would it take for you to say everything that you just said right now to your current self right now?
Remember earlier when I said I was happy a couple of weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely was. But now, like, as we're talking about it, it was also like a means for me to escape again.
Mm, mm-hmm.
I came from a holiday, but before that holiday, I got out of a breakup. So it was a means for me to distract myself again and to feel excited again.
Mm,
And honestly, earlier before this conversation, I was like, I don't think I want to talk about the past because like everything that happened before the holiday, that's erased. That's like I don't want to tap
mm,
into it anymore. I don't want to think about the breakup.
yeah.
But I just realized that I'm distracting myself again. Like I want to remain happy again, but I haven't really fully processed what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so instead of distracting or seeking an escape when these uncomfortable feelings come up, what are some things that you can do? Because you can still eventually go on vacation, you can still go on a break, you still can. But before getting to that, what are some things that you can do so that you honor yourself that way? You honor your emotions that way.
Acknowledge it. Just acknowledge it. I've been trying to journal in the
Mm-hmm.
past couple of months. I haven't been consistent about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been trying to journal, and every time I journal about my emotions, tuloy-tuloy siya. Like, I just write, and then the papers would be wet because I'd be crying.
Mm.
And sometimes I avoid journaling because I don't want to go through that again. Like I don't want to cry again.
Mm.
I just have to acknowledge it now.
Yes, and again, it's okay if you cry it out because like that's an outlet. That's an outlet. That's your body that's telling you something. Anytime your body feels an emotion that's strong, makes you want to react in a way that's either in the form of tears or maybe in the form of rage or however it manifests in your body, that's information for you. That's information that your body is telling you to pay attention and that it's okay to have these feelings. Okay? How are you feeling now?
Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
a bit frustrated still
That's okay.
because like it's a habit. Like it's something that I always do when I'm like I feel it out of control.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel kind of enlightened because this is the first time I've actually talked about it, and like these are things I've never really admitted to myself
Mm.
or to anybody.
Mm.
And it's nice to just let loose and just cry.
Yeah.
Because ever since like we started the conversation, I haven't stopped crying. I normally wouldn't allow that to happen. So I feel a bit like now.
Yeah, you should give yourself more permission to cry more. To just let it out. You don't have to stop it from. And yeah, I see you in your pain and in your confusion and frustration. And I hope this coaching has helped you even just a little bit. Okay.
It helped a lot. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
The opinions of podcast creators, hosts, and guests are not necessarily reflective of the official stance of the Pod Network Entertainment, its hosts, or other network programs. The content created by the people behind the podcast is personal and not meant to harm any religion, ethnicity, group, organization, company, or individual.